Hello, Sacred Walkers, and welcome back to the Rebirth Room. So, today's video, we are going to discuss my own grief and the lessons that I had to learn for me to get to a different perspective of what pain really is. So, like I said in my last video about what the rebirth room is, I'll try my best to be as compassionate as I can. And I also will try my best to be sympathetic. But a lot of the videos in the rebirth room is more so my healed version of it. So you can look at a lot of toxicity and a lot of behaviors from like a different perspective. Okay, so with this video, I do want to talk about, what grief is. I've learned that grief is not just something that you just get over. It's something that comes to you in waves. It's something you have to learn to carry differently. Not just through physical loss, but emotional, spiritual, and ancestral. And today I speak from the part of me that has grieved deeply. And I had no choice but to rise again. So, like, my first encounter with grief was when my child's father passed away. Him and I shared a journey. One that came with like love, but it also came with confusion and betrayal and grief. And while I never really said anything publicly, what I went through shaped who I became. I held pain that wasn't mine. I took blame that didn't belong to me. I tried to heal privately while being judged publicly. People assumed, they created stories, and they stood on the sidelines. And I still grieve by myself. This isn't about him. It's really about me and the parts of me that never had a voice. It's really about also the healing that requires exposure. I had to heal in silence. I had to heal by myself. And his family might watch this. And I pray you get what you need. But this isn't for anybody else. This is for my own peace. This is for my freedom. I was rooted in vengeance. I wanted payback for the mistreatment, for the abandonment, for the silence, the unanswered questions, the mess that he made before he passed. I wanted it all to be cleared, and I also wanted to be paid back in blood. But then grief taught me how to let go in the moment too, to release what I couldn't fix anymore. And that's when I really had to go to God with a completely open soul, a complete rebirth of me. I needed him to cleanse my spirit and purify my soul and to set it back to its factory settings so I can just unnumb my tongue. I needed peace. I needed to heal my tongue in the midst of it too, so my spirit could unroot itself from the pain. Like I said, grief comes in many waves. But this grief, sitting in this grief, It taught me how to let go. It softened me. And while I was being transformed and cleansed of it, because emotionally I let him go, but it was the spiritual side that I was having a hard time with. And once I was able to fully free myself, it's like forgiveness was the core of my spirit. So it was like as I'm walking through the field of grief, I got hit again with another lesson about grief, because I only saw it that one time with my child's father. My second encounter with grief was when I was taking care of this old man. I was his client. This one came unexpectedly. And through death of someone I cared for who ended up turning into family, the way he saw me and the way that him and I just existed and in our own little world and nothing mattered. It was just us. The relationship that him and I built. All because I just wanted to help. You know, during that time, I was working myself into the ground, trapped into a poverty mindset, chasing dreams with no breath. And his death came in waves. It reminded me to pause, to enjoy the fruits of my labor, to stop sprinting through a life I never gave myself permission to actually savor and enjoy. This grief hit me differently. His passing, it kind of cracked me open. And it taught me that happiness can exist inside of a goodbye. That letting go can be peaceful. And that love, when honored, it doesn't die, that I've learned. It transforms. Now, my third encounter with grief was my dad. And it's crazy because from the client and my father and my grandfather, it's like they all died back to back. It was my client, and then it was my grandfather, and then it was my dad. My grandfather's death was kind of like my dad's death, because I already had forgiven him for the abandonment. But I still kept my distance because I didn't really know my dad. I only knew him from the one-sided story that shaped him and his character, because I never really knew the truth. And I wasn't really trying to figure out the truth until I got older, until I actually became a parent. Then it was I understood from a different perspective, but we'll get into that. My father was a product of his environment. He was a man who kept swapping jobs for a $2 raise. He was a man who died broke. He had no money, he had no plan, just a legacy of labor that led to nothing. His passing taught me how to shift. That staying loyal to struggle is not love. And that grief can actually be a mirror showing you a path that you no longer have or want to walk. And that sometimes letting go is easier than holding on. I'm sorry, y'all. I thought I healed from this already. His death showed me that I had to end another generational curse of poverty, struggle in love and money, with self growth. It was like I had to heal my tongue yet again. I had to break another cycle. And I had no choice but to choose abundance over survival this time, because now I don't really have a choice but to trust God, because I've always told myself, as long as I have God and the divine, I'm straight. And I made a promise to myself that, you know, it's going to reshape my discernment. Now that I'm closer to the gates of grief, you know, that's surrounded by offensive lessons, we're going to talk about a grief that is rarely discussed. You know, the grief of losing friends and the version of yourself that you gave them. I've grieved friendships that once felt like soul ties, where I was more of a friend to them than they were to me. Showing up for them, being that support person in the crowd when they're going through something. Being that I'm down with you forever, showcasing a certain type of loyalty for them. And all I got was breadcrumbs of love back. That kind of grief hits different. It made me plead that no one would ever get that close to me again. Because I'm a lover girl at heart, okay? I love love. I love everything about love. I love how compromisal it can be. I love how much of a growth it can be, because I've learned that love is not a struggle. It's a balance. And I love deeply. And when I call you my friend, I show up fully. Okay? No mask, no filter, just me. And in friendships, I've always felt safe enough to be vulnerable, sometimes even more than in romantic love. And so when those bonds break, and it wasn't just like a loss of connection for me when it comes to losing friends and the grief that comes with it, it was like a loss of safety, like of home and of myself. You know, grief, when it really came overall, like, it reshaped my discernment for a lot of things. It taught me that I need to pay attention to the red flags of the tongue, how people speak when emotion dries, what their silence says in moments of truth, what it means to be happy that you've gotten an accomplishment that you worked so hard for, and they hit you with a congratulations, and that's it. Or they're not giving you what you need, rather emotionally, rather it's mentally, or if it's spiritually, you're lacking something, and it forces you to feel like, I don't want to let this person go, but I have to. It taught me that loyalty isn't a word, it's the posture. And now I require reciprocity. Now I guard the parts of me I used to give away for free. Grief changed my tongue, and it redefined what loyalty looks like. So now I have to ask myself, what is it that I'm looking for in friendship? What am I looking for in a romantic partner? What am I looking for, like, in life? You know? Grief didn't just break me, it revealed me in a really strange way. Grief reveals you. Heartbreak shapes you. Struggle recalibrates you. It showed me my own self where I was rooted, and it gave me a permanent permission to like rise through it all, because I know that my hands and my soul is clean. Because I also know that as long as my heart is pure, I'm going to stay blessed. I'm going to stay at the first and at the top of God's line. Because anytime that I call on God in spirit, of course, I have to go through a test first. But He knows I'm going to pass it. And spirit knows I'm going to put up a foot. I'm going to cry. I'm going to cuss. I'm going to be a rebellious person, because that's me. But it'll get done. So, a recap of what is grief. A recap of what grief taught me. Grief taught me that letting go is sacred, not selfish. That love without self-love will bury you. And peace begins when you release who you thought you had to be. God told me I'll give you abundance. Now it makes sense when He said that I have to water my lessons with the salt of my tears. How He gave me this platform to help others, but first I had to free myself. And this is the part of the freedom. Oh my God. So, to every woman or every person or every sacred walker, because that's what you all are, sacred walkers, because you are God's children and you all need to walk through the shadow of the valley of your own death for the umpteenth time. To anyone who's silently grieving, you're not alone. Because this rebirth room is here to show you that the silence ends, and the healing and the unrooting, unbinding, unhinging yourself, freeing of your mind, your tongue, your spirit, your energy, your aura, your presence, your becoming, your abundance, your testimony. All of that begins here, where I teach you all from experience. So, I hoped you all have learned something with this video to show you all, do not stay stuck and do not die with your grief. I need you to find a little bit of happiness every single day, whether it's, smelling of their perfume or reading a letter that they wrote or something. Every day I need you to find just a small piece of happiness. God said all I need is the faith of a mustard seed, and that's what I'm asking from you. I need the faith and the happiness of a mustard seed. And I promise you, you're going to be all right. Welcome to the Rebirth Room.